Okay. Good morning, everyone. Well, I was just checking. Good evening, everyone. So I'm sorry for the confusion. It was 8:30 p.m. and the reason we chose this time for the elevator pitches is because these chaps and girls, they work at their best efficiency at this time. So it was for them that we chose 8:30. Probably 9 p.m. we have figured out that 9 p.m. is the best time for their efficiency, highest efficiency. So elevator pitches, the idea is that they will be presenting their coursework in 90 seconds, exactly 90 seconds, and then we'll have 30 more seconds for the transfer. So this mic has to go from one presenter to the other in 30 seconds. There will be a blue circle. So can we have the next slide, please? So you see this blue circle? That means glue. So you stay on your seats, don't move until you see an orange one. So this blue circle will stay there for 60 seconds, and then for the last 30 seconds, you'll have a countdown going towards 0. So you get 90 exact seconds, and then we automatically go to the next slide for 30 seconds, which is the filler slide. Now, just an introduction as to this course. So, I hope you know me all. I hope you all know me. I'm Gaurav Bhutani, and well, hopefully all of you know me in the students. So, Continuum Mechanics is a course. So, Continuum Mechanics is continuum plus mechanics. So, continuum comes from the Latin word continuous, which means continuous. And mechanics, as we all know, is if you have external forces acting on the body moves, does something. So, we study that behavior of the body based on the external forces, and that's mechanics. So, continuum mechanics is, okay, pause, go back. So continuum mechanics is basically you are all sitting on a chair and the chair is deforming because of your load. So that deformation is something that we can quantify using the laws of continuum mechanics. So it's basically mechanics for continuous deformations. Now we can study solids, liquids and gases, so all kinds of materials using continuum mechanics. So when I started this course with the students, they said that it's very theoretical. And that's what the feedback they got from the seniors, that it's very theoretical, all we see is integrals and differentials with lots of integral differential equations. So I asked them, what do you mean by continuum mechanics? The answer I got was equations, mathematics. So over the period of 3 months now, they are answering their own question. So they will present to you what they have learned in the 3 months and how those equations can be related to the real world. So we have a vision, and we have been talking about the vision for the last few months now. The vision is what's coming in the future. So 20 years ago, we used to study those subjects that were relevant at that time in the industry. Now we study a core course called continuum mechanics, where we have electrical, mechanical, civil, computer science, all of them. So the reason is because the industry is going towards a high-tech automation. We are going to Mars. That's the truth. We have mines which are running from thousands of kilometers away. Rio Tinto Mine of the Future project. We have rockets that are landing vertically. Why? Because they'll go on Mars and land vertically. Reusable rockets. We have cars that run automatically. Why? Mars. So we see solar energy. Why? Mars. So you see that we are going to Mars, and that is happening. And what will help? Any guesses? Continuum mechanics, yes. So we see that we are training you for the future, and that future is you people, you smart and bright people. So without much ado, I'll start these presentations. So the next presenter, you can have your mic. No system, you just talk.
No, like, what is this record?
Don't worry, just talk for 90 seconds.
So, in Formula 1, the difference between winning and not can be less than the 10th of a second. In this highly competitive environment, engineers have been working for decades to make these cars go quicker. Now, there are really two ways to make a car go quicker. You can either improve the engine, which is wasteful, releases gases, or you can improve the aerodynamics of the car. Now, ask any racing driver their number one wish, and it would be more grip. More grip means that they can accelerate harder, they can brake later, and then they can take their corners quicker. This grip really is the friction generated between the tires and the road. Now, to increase this friction, you could either improve the tires, which are strictly regulated, or you can increase the downforce that the car puts through these tires. To do this, downforce is generated by effectively adding inverted wings to these cars. These inverted wings shape the air around the car in such a way that not only does it generate the least amount of drag, but it also pushes the car into the ground. Modern Formula 1 cars can generate up to 4 times their own weight just in downforce at top speed. And this leads to their incredibly quick speed around these modern circuits. There have been many ways that these downforce has been generated over the years. There have been cars that use ground effect, which generate low pressure areas under the car to suck the car towards the road. Or there have been these. Okay.
Hi. Tornadoes are rapidly rotating air columns that form between thunderclouds and the ground, and they've been dubbed the nature's most dangerous storms. Tornadoes are enigmatic and as fascinating as anything can get because it's hard to make quantitative observations because tornadoes are short-lived, they can move along unpredicted trajectories, and they can rip apart your measuring instruments to shreds. Thus, most of the mathematical models of tornadoes are not actually based upon real tornadoes, but laboratory simulations of tornadoes, and these laboratory simulations are intense vortices. Thus, these mathematical models at their most basic are based upon Coot flow and equations of vorticity, and you can associate vorticity tensors and rotation tensors with the tornado. That's it.
Hello. Hello everyone. I assume everyone here must have watched Game of Thrones, because if you haven't, you must watch it. We watched the show and we heard the phrase winter is coming. We watched the show for 5 seasons and winter wasn't there. And finally in season 6, winter arrived. I wish Starks were as cool as we are and they had a better climate modeling, which is an application of quantum mechanics. Now, the topic which I am going to speak about is quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is used to predict the temperature of a region of Earth or the entire Earth using the global circulation model. So it consists of dividing the Earth in a series of grids where each grid extends to the top of the atmosphere or beneath the ocean. We apply a series of quantum mechanical equations over each grid and integrate over the entire Earth. We use the Navier-Stokes equation, which consists of conservation of mass, conservation of momentum, and continuity equation. These equations, let me tell you an interesting fact about Navier-Stokes equation. If we could crack that equation and find that the solution do exist for this equation and it is in fact real, you could win a prize of $1 million. Yes, you heard it right. You can win a prize of $1 million by Clay Mathematical Institute. Climate modeling is of utmost importance in our daily life. Like it is used by farmers to predict the climate over the entire span of the year because they need to cultivate crops according to the climate. And moreover, it is used by insurance and policy makers to predict their future investments. I guess the time is over, so I will wrap up my presentation. Thank you.
So the problem is representation of 3D computer-generated objects onto 2D screens in the context of virtual reality. So a virtual reality viewer has basically 2 origins and 2 coordinate axes corresponding to those origins. These origins are his eyes. So if a person moves sideways, then it is translation. If a person tilts his head, then it is rotation. If a person moves towards an object, then it is scaling. Also, to simulate focusing, we basically move the relative angles between these coordinate axes. And now talking about these operations, scaling. So basically, in scaling, what we do is we take the original tensor, multiply it with a diagonal matrix which has the scaling information in it. For rotation, we take the original tensor and multiply with the transformation matrix, which is basically the cosines of all the angles that are different angles between the coordinate axes. Now transition may seem like an additive operation, however, it can be modeled as a multiplicative operation. Why is this important? Because if we use a multiplicative operation, then we can associate them with the above two operations. Because of tensor multiplication associativity, we can actually come up with a single multiplicative operation which does all three jobs in a single time. This is much more computationally easier than doing the individual operation on each one of these. Now, how translation works? We basically have a 3D object. We extend it to four dimension space, and then we shear it to get the translation. Then we project it back to 3D. A very good evening to everyone. Globalization has made several collaborations in this world possible. This has made the transport a key factor in the speeding up of the manufacturing process or sharing of goods and services. Thus, we have to to make our pockets lighter and to save on our pockets and improve the environment or save the environment. We need to make the fastest mode of transport more fuel efficient. The design of the aircraft has remained the same for over 50 years. The body wing blended design is much more fuel efficient for a couple of reasons. The stress experienced by the body wing design is much lower. This is because the lift is 40% of the lift is provided by the central part of the aircraft itself, which lowers the wing bending moment. Thus, the stress experience is much lower. Thus we can make much lighter frames. Also, the turbulence cost is much lower in the body wing designs. That is, the body wing design can actually be seen on screen. This turbulence cost is much lower, so there are much lower stress experienced. So we can actually make the aircraft lighter and much more fuel efficient. There are disadvantages, like the central cabin experienced more pressure because there was a cuboidal design for it. But now the design has been changed and it has been replaced by a three-bay arc-based designs. So if we need to save $2,000 for every arc of flight clogged, we need to switch to body wing designs. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, so let's talk about soft tissues. I'm here to talk about applications of continuum biomechanics. So soft tissues, they don't obey the Hooke's law, but they obey the basic postulates of mechanics. So when we look at analyzing knee joints, for example, there are shear stresses along three axes, the tibial axis and then two axes in the horizontal plane. So the synovial fluid in the knee joint, it helps reduce the shear stresses. So in the end, the only shear stress that matters is along the normals, that is the tibial axis. So when we think about a cure for replacement of knee joints and stuff, the first solution that comes to the main point that is of paramount importance is the mobility and stability of the joint. So first we think about ball and socket joint. It's okay, but it fails because of the unnatural movement. It causes the wear and tear of ligaments. So the second solution that comes to mind is replicating the biological anatomy of the knee. So we make an artificial meniscus which uses a washer to construct the knee.
So some of the famous personalities that have been benefited by this treatment, I'm sure you've heard these names, is Maria Sharapova, Tiger Woods, and Kobe Bryant, the basketball star player. And in the end, I would like to say that continuum mechanics has contributed a lot to medical science. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Stretching is one of the most common form of exercises. In fact, warm-up routines before any game or any matches, etc. Static stretching involves the movement of muscles beyond their comfortable range of motion and holding in a position for 10 to 30 seconds before retracting. Whereas ballistic stretching involves rapid and repeated movements of muscles beyond their comfortable range of motion. During stretching, the biological tissues such as muscles, ligaments, bones are subjected to several loads. The load can be tensile, the load can be compressive, or can be bending. The several loads have different impacts on the tissues. During stretching, the behavior of biological tissues is complex. These viscoelastic tissues are not only complex in structure but also in behavior. Biological tissues are viscoelastic in nature. Viscoelastic means the stress and strain are dependent on the rate of loading. Hence, the timing of application of force affects the strain response of the materials. Since ballistic stretching involves the rapid movements result in a faster rate of stretch. A faster rate of stretch results in the rapid increase in force in the biological tissues. This rapid increase is harmful for the tissues as it may lead to microstructural damage of the tissues. Consequently, static exercises should be preferred. Thank you.
Hello. So I will speak on the design of aircraft wings and what forces they force. So the design of an aircraft wing is like this. It is made inclined to the airflow so that more particles can hit at the lower surface. Pressure, high pressure here and low pressure here. So this provides the lift force which makes that aircraft fly. Now what forces it force? When it flies, there is a lift force which makes the aircraft wings bend like this. So it will face a normal stress this way and a normal stress this side. But there is expansion in this side and a compression in this side. So due to this, these forces it faces. Now a common question may arise, why then these wings don't break down? The material used here is aluminium, which has high tensile strength, and now they are using some composite materials which are more lighter and more stronger than aluminium. So we can increase the efficiency of aeroplanes, so we need less fuel consumption. Thank you.
So in analysis of crack propagation in tires, we basically use fracture mechanics. Fracture mechanics basically deals with the crack propagation theory. In this, we use Irwin's crack propagation theory to calculate the propagation of a crack in a material. by using this, we can basically get the wear and tear of a material by assuming that there is some initial crack in it. So we can get how much stress it can withstand at particular point. By doing so, we can basically analyze the tire lifetime. It's very useful in F1 races. So we generally see, we rarely see that a tire puncture causes you to lose a race in F1 races. So tire lifetime is very important to maintain in F1 race. So to do so, we are gonna basically do finite element analysis to a tire, and we can basically get the info of how much stress it can withstand at different points. And so in the middle of the race, we can get the lifetime of the tire by analyzing the cracks it faced during the race time. So by doing so,
Good evening, myself Nisha Kumari, and I'm going to talk about application of continuum mechanics in design of deep potash mines, or basically mines. Continuum mechanics is widely used in rock mechanics and designing mines. A lot of laboratory studies have been done, but their results cannot be directly applied due to some limitations. In rock mechanics, for example, it is difficult to describe the true three-dimensional behavior of rock media. After a lot of research, a three-dimensional testing machine is developed, designated as ATT, Absolute Triaxial Testing Machine. This machine is based on tensor analysis of a continuum. The results of the tensor analysis of rock media led to the establishment of a new continuum theory of rocks, which has proven to be a useful tool in solving practical mining problems. So this is how continuum mechanics is being used in designing such, encountering such problems in mining, and a lot more techniques are being developed. So thank you.
This topic is non-minor, I think.
Okay, then.
This is not minor.
Okay, sorry. Is that yours?
Yes, sir. So I am here to going to briefly explain the use of continuum mechanics in vapor. As we know that vapor is used in many of the industry, so our main focus is to increase the efficiency. So continuum mechanics help us to formulate the relations between saturated pressure and the radius of pores, which mainly affect the the film boiling, which decrease the efficiency. So it actually give us the relation and predict the radius of pores at which the film boiling can be happened. So definitely actually there are several other methods which can predict the radius of pores at which the film boiling happens, but those are very tricky and complex also. So continuum mechanics is the best way to prevent film boiling. That's all.
there's a confusion. I think he had this topic. Did you have the same topic? Maybe you spoke. Okay, that's fine. So we have another presentation on the same topic. There's a confusion about that. And can we please have some silence? Thank you.
Shall we start? Okay. In the ever.
The mic is off.
Okay, can we? Okay. In this ever-increasing modern world, there are lots of industries which involve the transfer of heat. We need to transfer the heat from one place to another, like in dams or electric power generators. We need to transfer heat from the steam engine to the turbine. In our electronic devices, we need to transfer heat from our processor to the fluid so that our processor can cool down at the same time. So there are lots of applications of transfer of the heat. The most commonly used fluid in the transfer of heat is water, and the heat transfer rate of water is most efficient in case of nuclear boiling, and the film boiling should be prevented because in film boiling the temperature difference between the solid liquid interface must be between 120 degrees Celsius to 1000 degrees Celsius, whereas in the nuclear boiling regime we need to have temperature difference of just 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. So we can promote nuclear boiling by some phenomena like texturing the surface. Texturing surface create the force on the surface, and the force drive the capillary pressure on the surface. Capillary pressure drives the liquid into the pores, and the surface get hydrophilic, and hydrophilic surface promote wettability, and the liquid can boil easily. Whereas in case of film boiling, we need to have so much. Okay.
This has been done, right?
Good evening, everyone. Right from our childhood, we've always been fascinated by flying objects, whether it be a supersonic jet or a bird. And one such thing which has always fascinated me is a boomerang. And the motion of a boomerang is based on a very fundamental principle of fluid mechanics, which is the Bernoulli's principle. The Bernoulli's principle states that if the potential energy along a streamline is constant, the total energy along the streamline also remains constant, and it is balanced by the pressure and the kinetic energy. The major reasons for the flight of a boomerang are lift, the relative velocity, and recession. So during the motion of a boomerang, it has a velocity, and due to this velocity and due to the aerodynamic shape of the wings of the boomerang, it receives a lift due to which it doesn't fall to the ground. And during its motion, when we look carefully, we can see that the wings also rotate while translating. So due to this rotation, this wing will move faster, while this wing will move slower because of the relative velocity along with respect to the air that it is penetrating through. So this causes a torque which is unequal on the wings, and due to this, the boomerang moves in a circular path which returns back to the person who has thrown it. This is how the motion of the boomerang is. Thank you.
Deformation in continuum mechanics is the transformation of a material from a given reference configuration to a current configuration. Even when we study about stress, strains, and other causes of deformation, we only think about physical and material applications. Let's just talk about the effects at a molecular level. Today I'll explain one such application, that is converting lead pencil graphite to a diamond. Measure the free energies of graphite and diamond and you'll find that they're more or less the same. Well, then converting one form into another ought to be easy. Yet in experiments, It only works well above 1700 Kelvin and an access pressure of 12 gigapascals. No wonder why diamond is rare and valuable. But the researchers at SLAC have found a new route to this conversion, and they set off a reaction by having a few layers of graphene and exposing the topmost one to hydrogen. This set off a domino effect and altered the structure of the graphene layers from graphite-like to diamond-like. This hydrogenation, now an alternative way, that is hydrogenation of graphene, is now under our grasp on a nanoscale. This hydrogenation of graphene gives us a thin layer or extremely pure diamond crystal. Now imagine the lead of your 5 rupees pencil to be turned into diamond. Well, that's deformation and that's continuum mechanics for you.
So, hello everyone, our topic is deformation of planets. So, deformation is transformation of a body from reference configuration to current configuration. So, deformation of a celestial body happens due to the centrifugal acceleration as the near part of the body towards the center of gravity is pulled more easily than the farther part. So, deformation of a planet and rotational speed are interrelated. So, as the rotational speed increases, the planet changes shape from a spherical body towards a dumbbell shaped body, and more increase in the speed can break the planet into two different bodies. So deformation affects the gravitational pull of the body, which means change in the orbit of the planet. And if two planets are in the same orbit, tidal effects can change the atmosphere of the planet. Change in atmosphere means either creation of a new life form on that planet or destruction of the previous one. Alternatively, the lack of the planet in its previous orbit means lack of the planet means there will be orbital resonance of solar system, the disruption in the orbital resonance of solar system. Thank you.
We are recording this. Can you please make sure that you speak in the mic?
Yeah.
Hello everyone. This is effect of magnetic field on the flow of fourth order fluid. The fourth order fluid is nothing but it's a non-Newtonian fluid. There are some special characteristics of shear stress and something like that. The motivation behind this study is the daily use of non-Newtonian fluid in our daily life. It has increased drastically, and it is because of its different uses in different industries. There are several non-Newtonian fluids which we use in our daily life. That is like toothpaste, boring muds and mud coatings, and such that. So the thing is that every non-Newtonian fluids have some specific type of shear stress versus shear stress rate curve, and that curve defines the different properties. So actually, there has been different models have been proposed by different persons regarding non-Newtonian fluids. So our topic is that we are in this case, in this study, that the unsteady unidirectional magnetohydrodynamic flow of non-compressible fourth order fluid is passed through a bonded liquid and with an arbitrary velocity of Vt and a perpendicular magnetic field applied over that. And the use of this study is that it is used in flow of plasma and the flow of mercury amalgam and also the human body flow. That's all. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Sai Sandeep. Actually, we are all fascinated by these natural disasters and thing, and we are all interested how they we are all interested to know how they occur and what are the consequences. So we selected this topic called cyclones. Actually, the cyclones are the system of winds which turn anti-clockwise or clockwise due to the in the area of the low pressure. So these cyclones cause this causes damages to the human resources and human lives. So it is important to know this how they occur and all. So this continuum mechanics helps us to know how they occur and we can predict it. So that we can take the precautions on the beforehand. So what are the causes of these cyclones? The causes of the cyclones are the rapid change of the temperature on the basis of height, the temperature of the ocean surface, circular vorticity, and the potential vorticity, and many other causes. So we can all study these by these Navier-Stokes equations and circular vorticity and these all. So which is a part of the fluid mechanics, and this fluid mechanics is all is a subset of continuum mechanics. So we can predict these all by using this continuum mechanics. That's it. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so brain image segmentation forms a very important part of medical diagnosis in some of the diseases which are related to the neural networks, neural brain and our body. So machine learning can help us detect some of the anomalies that can be used to identify whether some kind of diseases exist in our body or not, like autism or Alzheimer's disease. So what we are looking for is that we have some particular scans from MRI and other imaging techniques where you have some information regarding the shape and the structure of brain. So you try to label different parts of the brain and try to identify the shape or the structure of the brain and make correlations of these shapes and structures with diseases. Now, what we are looking for is that if some new kind of image or a new scan comes up to us, then how can we identify that whether this scan can particularly point to a certain kind of disorder or not using computers, using machine learning. So brain image segmentation is the part where continuum mechanics equations are used to map different images of the brains to already known images or called templates, so as to identify whether any deformation exists or not. And when we assume that it is present in a deforming liquid, it gives us a pretty good idea of whether any deformation exists. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello friends. Have you ever seen buildings like Burj Al Arab and wondered how these skyscrapers are built? Besides being built on an artificial island, this is the third highest building in the world. The basic principles of continuum mechanics are foundational aspects of soil mechanics, which is the main motivation behind realizing these sites. For example, while we design the foundation of a structure, the stress analysis has to be done. The depth of foundation too is determined from many equilibrium equations. Plasticity of soil too could be found using some basic equations from continuum mechanics. Now, if these factors aren't considered, then we might be able to get a new Leaning Tower of Pisa. Principles derived in continuum mechanics are also used in various subjects like soil liquefaction, then foundational designs, construction of dams, etc. A lot of research is still going on in this field, like predicting changes in the planned shape of a beach, then modeling soil deformation as a dynamical system, and also the earthquake proofing of foundations and many more. Thank you.
also. Let the time. Fracture analysis using continuum mechanics. The success of an engineering structure depends upon the appropriate material with appropriate optical, physical and mechanical properties. Material failure is the loss of load carrying capacity in a material unit. Now, fracture analysis is done using Taylor rod impact test. What is Taylor rod impact test? In Taylor rod impact test, we take a flat nose cylindrical projectile and we strike it against a rigid object, and then we apply the continuum damage mechanics model in the damage done to the cylindrical projectile. Now, in this case, we take a steel rod and we take first 250 meter per second velocity. When we strike it against a rigid object, it bounces back and it only mushrooms. But when we strike it with 350 meter per second velocity, it doesn't bounces back. First it mushrooms, then tensile splitting occurs, and then finally fracture occurs. So we can use continuum damage mechanics for fracture analysis and for various industrial applications to improve our materials.
Hello everyone. Now we'll talk about why the curl or rotation happens in a tornadoes. Suppose we see every day our when we flush in a sink, the water turns in a curl path. It is a rotation. Why it is occurring? Because of the rotation of the earth. It is due to the Coriolis effect, which is caused. I will show it. Suppose this is there. When we throw a body towards a northern surface, it deviates towards somewhat right, and in case towards the southern hemisphere, it deviates towards the westwards, because it is rotating with high angular velocities. So you experience this Coriolis effect. The Coriolis effect results for the rotation of the in the tornadoes. In the northern hemisphere, we have a tornadoes in anti-clockwise directions, and in southern hemisphere, we have a clockwise tornadoes. We will discuss about the mathematical calculations like pressure difference of a tornadoes can be like a free vortex flow. The pressure difference as a Z is we know that atmospheric pressure varies in a vertical axis as a rho minus rho g, and pressure varies with the radial direction as minus u square by r.
Hello friends, I will be speaking on shape memory alloys. Shape memory alloys are also known as smart metals, memory metals, and by many other names. Shape memory alloys are alloys which retain their original shape once they are allowed to deform under a thermomechanical stress. They have many applications. One of them is being used in V-bones and V-dental wires. What are V-bones? V-bones are joints that can be made in a fracture, and they take the shape of the bone itself later on when they are subjected to temperature change under of the body. Also, the shape memory alloys are used in spacecrafts. NASA has invited many companies to do research on shape memory alloys, and the Glenn Research Center will pay for that. If we can reduce 1 kg from the spacecraft that much fuel can be put in it, and this will reduce the cost in millions. How is it related to continuum mechanics? It's related to continuum mechanics as continuum mechanics teaches us about deformations under different stresses, and shape memory alloys are all about deformation. So thank you.
So hello everyone. I will be talking about the most amazing material that nowadays in the material industry, that is carbon nanotubes. So after its discovery in 1991, it has changed the material, material scientist minds completely. So because of its exceptional properties. So basically carbon nanotubes are the graphene, made up of the graphene sheets. They are bent in the cylindrical shape as shown here, and they are far better than copper conductor. They are far better conductor than copper and aluminum that we generally use, and they are hundreds of times stronger than steel. So and you might not believe that 1 gram of graphene can cover the complete football ground, and because of its elasticity property, because it has Young's modulus of around 500 gigapascals. So it has wide range of application. First, I'm coming to the continuum mechanics in the properties of carbon nanotubes. So when we talk about the deformation from one plane to another, so when we talk if we deform deform under the deformation gradient F, so we found that we can represent the bond length and bond angles in terms of stretch ratio lambda that we studied, and the elasticity and the interatomic potential energy can also be represented in terms of the Cauchy-Green deformation tensors. So that's it about the carbon nanotubes. Thank you.
Hello. Recently, ISRO launched 104 satellite in one go. We are all proud as an Indian, and we are all totally relying on these satellites in form of communication and internet. Thanks to the technicians behind it and the technology they use it. One of the technique, continuum mechanics is one of the technique they used, and for using the fuel, the use of fuel also, the calculation behind continuum mechanics do a role in it. Also, you may not have noticed the launching pad. When it is launching, it's also oscillate. It can cause a bad effect on the rocket, but continuum mechanics equations solve to reduce the effect in it, and also the satellites, when it goes above the gravitational field, it has formed some deformation. So this deformation can be reduced using continuum mechanics equations. Thank you all.
Hello. Hello. I will be talking on turbulent particle in fully loaded jet. As we saw how rocket go up, and we think that how it will go up. So the motion of the particle that fuel combustion in rocket, the motion of the particle is basically find by the use of there are two ways to find the turbulent particle flow motion. One is single phase turbulent flow and second is two phase turbulent flow. The two phase turbulent flow is basically how to find the velocity of the particle is given by the two scientists Algovasi and Abu Arab in 1983. The two-phase turbulent flow is considered in a work of JET. That the main aim to investigate, describe and analyze in the paper was to develop and evaluate a mathematical model describe a behavior of dilute particle loading around free Z. Because of the fact that two-phase flow considered is dilute, evolution of turbulence modulation from the model has not given significant error. That's all.
Okay. I'm sure you have experienced traffic jams in your life. There have been times when even Google Maps was saying that traffic is clear, but it was not at all clear. Well, this happens because of a non-existence of any viable and good enough traffic model. So, 3 researchers at MIT have recently come up with a traffic model that is able to predict future traffic densities and velocities at different points. So when this model comes to use, your Google Maps predictions are going to be much more accurate and you will not have traffic jams. I would not say not forever, but yeah, reduced. So, well, this model may seem to be very complex, but at the heart it uses a very simple quantum mechanics principle called the continuity equation. Yes, the continuity equation that you studied during your JEE days. It has been used to model fluid flow in the form of A into V is equal to constant, where A is the area. And the same equation can also be used to model the flow in nanotubes, flow of red blood cells in the vessels, and also to model the traffic flow. So when you consider the traffic flow to be a macro object, not constituent of individual cars, but a macro flow, traffic is a macro thing. So that thing has a flux to be constant, the flux is constant. And the continuity equation says that density into velocity is flux. And since flux is constant, because number of cars is conserved in a flow, hence that is used to model traffic effectively. Thank you.
Do you know we have lost countless many lives and in monsoon calamities. Also, the last year Indian government spent 1,500 crores just in drought compensations. So we can understand how much money and lives we lose in monsoon calamities. So what if we can predict this monsoon? So for the generation, people have been trying to predict the monsoon. But in 2009, according to the Indian Meteorological Department, their probability to their prediction come true is only 40%. Only 40%. So we can understand this will require much more study to so we can increase the number, then increase the probability to predict the monsoon. So how can we predict the monsoon? So we can analyze the monsoon model, and then we can compute that monsoon model in supercomputers or any other computational machine, and we can predict this. So mainly monsoon depends on the temperature difference between sea and land, pressure gradient, and also the currents of direction of currents in oceans and the rotation of Earth also. So continuum mechanics help us to analyze these factors very easily and in systematic way, so we can predict the monsoon easily. Thank you.
Hi all, it's Aditya. So from last several years we are suffering the problem of designing of deep potash mines. How deep can we go, which depths are safer? So a lot of techniques had been made up, but they are not sufficient to provide the full information about the rock analysis. So a new technique came up which is called the ATT, Absolute Triaxial Testing Machine. which automatically uses the tensor analysis of continuum mechanics. So ATT controls and measures all the tensor components of the stress and strain states and time dependence variations of the rock media. So what does it do? It has proved to be very useful in providing the technical solutions in practical problems of mining. But the real problem is if we can go beyond 3600 feet in mining. 3600 feet is the real trademark right now. So 3600 feet, so evaluation has been done. A result shows that it is not feasible to go beyond 3600 feet. But there may be significant advantages going beyond that. So should we take the risk or not? So here comes the continuum mechanics part. So what we will do, we'll determine the existing values of octahedral shearing stress, this is a term, technical term, and mean stress. So if the existing values approaches to 0, it means this is basically competent. Means we can build a very good mine over there regardless of the depth. But if the existing values approaches to the maximum shearing strength, which is technical term also, so that it is technically not possible to build a mine. So this is the basic part of quantum mechanics in designing of deep mines. Thank you.
Linear elasticity is the study of deformation of solid and how they become internally stressed under prescribed load conditions. The response of stress to strain in linear elasticity is a straight line, whose slope is given by the ratio of compressible stress upon longitudinal strain. So what's the use of studying this? Because we want to know why we are studying this. So I am going to tell about 3 applications of this. So linear elasticity principle helps in finding the in the ropes of cranes. Ropes of cranes, the highest stress value of the rope should be less than the breaking stress value of the material. And second case, in buildings, pillars and beams are used. So the shape of the beam is very, very important. So beams of I shapes are used. The importance of this beam is that it can bear more stress. It can bear more stress, and in pillars are used. Pillars are also modified to bear heavy loads by making the ends distributed. And one important and interesting application is that by the use of elastic properties of rocks, elastic properties of rock can help us in calculating the maximum height of the mountains that can exist on the earth. Okay, thanks.
Hi everyone, I am here to talk about the formation of mountains and how continuum mechanics play an important role in the formation of mountains. As we all know, mountains are the rock masses that rise above the its surroundings, and these are the mountains. So the formation of mountains are based on the stresses that applied on the plates that Earth are made up of. So there are 3 types of mountains, and those folded mountains and fault block mountains and the volcanic mountains. So folded mountains are when the underground stresses, they compress the plates. So the geographical plates, they get folded and they rise above the surface in the middle or somewhere. So they form the mountains. And when the same force, the force, they stretches the plates, so they get apart from each other. So then also the mountains are formed. And volcanic mountains, they are formed due to volcanic activities. When the magma that formed deep inside the earth, when the magma come on the surface, it cools down and it results into the mountains. Thank you.
So, hello everyone, I'm going to talk about how continuum mechanics can be how exactly are earthquakes caused. Earthquakes are caused when there are sudden or unusual movements in the fault zones which exist in the Earth's crust. So where exactly this continuum mechanics comes into play. So continuum mechanics is something which deals with simple continuous bodies which are bounded by surfaces, and there exist flaws in the Earth's crust, and these flaws can be used to determine how the various stresses and strains are induced in the various tectonic plates within the Earth. So yeah, actually there are very complex dislocation models which are created by researchers in London to analyze the earthquakes and the patterns, but the basic concept of continuum mechanics which is used is that the various stresses and the seismic waves which are actually responsible for earthquake are actually can be modeled as elastic waves, and these waves actually depend on the Young's modulus, the waves, the stress, and so yeah, that's how we can actually develop a software in which we have 3D models for the analysis of earthquakes. Thank you.
Hello friends, my friend Pankaj just explained you how stress and strain help to lift the plane, and but what he didn't tell you was there is another component of the force acting that time, which is against the motion of the plane, which is known as drag. Okay, so this drag is actually a mechanical force, and we can reduce this drag if we can control the wind flow near the surface of the airplane. Now this drag, now to overcome this drag, we have to use more energy, more fuel, which leads to more emission of the CO2, thus disrupting the environment and increasing the cost of the tickets, disrupting our bank accounts. But now there is a way by which we can reduce the fuel, the amount of the fuel that is expended by 25%, thus reducing the amount of the CO2 that is emitted and reducing the plane tickets obviously and saving our bank accounts. What we can do is we can apply tiny plasma actuators on the plane wings. What this does is they, with the help of the alternating current electrodes, they generate weak winds. Now these weak winds are very weak, but if we aim them and time them precisely, we can control the wind flow near the surface of the airplane. With the help of which we can reduce drag, muffled noises and turbulence. And also it will be very much easier to control the aircraft. And even stupid people like me will be able to control the aircraft. Thank you.
Hi, I'm going to be talking about the applications of continuum mechanics in earthquake seismology and why this is the topic to invest your time and money. Now, sudden release of energy in the Earth's crust leads to the generation of seismic waves, and these seismic waves are the ones that travel through the Earth and cause earthquakes. Now, we've studied stress and strains in continuum mechanics, and these can be used to formulate equations of these waves and also to develop relationships of quantities such as stress drops and the seismic energy that is released during the earthquakes, etc., which helps us get a further understanding of the topic of seismology. But the most important part is the development of models, for example the JB models that can be used to predict earthquakes and such phenomena. Three-component seismic stations can be used to completely characterize the ground movements beneath the surface of the Earth, and also we can use the angle and the time of arrival of seismic waves from the epicenter of the earthquake to the seismograph station to find out to quickly get to know the position of where the earthquake has actually originated. But why is all this important to you? It's important because earthquakes take lives. 300,000 lives were taken in the Indian tsunami, Indian Ocean tsunami that occurred due to the earthquake close to Indonesia, and they also lead to financial damage. Now, I'm not saying you can prevent earthquakes using container mechanics, but you can certainly, up to a certain extent, avoid them. And all it takes is some investment from your side and a good blend of container mechanics and earthquake seismology. Thank you.
That was our last presentation. Is there one more? So how many do we have more? Okay. So I don't have that here, but 2 more. That's 3 more minutes.
Okay. Earthquakes. The name itself sends a shock of fear in our minds because due to earthquakes there are various tragic events that has occurred. Earthquakes are caused by the movement of the tectonic plates. Most earthquakes due to the colliding of the tectonic plates or movement of tectonic plates on one another and due to the diversion. So these movements of the tectonic plates cause the occurrence of various waves which moves through the Earth's surface. The first one is the body waves, which is of 2 types, P waves and S waves. You would be thinking, what is the role of continuum mechanics in this? Continuum mechanics provides us with the equations to study these waves. The S waves, actually the study of these S waves led to the conclusion that outer surface of Earth is made up of liquid, because S waves cannot pass through liquids. It can only pass through the solid rock, whereas P waves can pass through solid and liquid both. The second one is the surface waves, which again is of 2 types. First is the Love waves and second is the Rayleigh waves. The after waves that we feel just by the earthquakes is the Rayleigh waves, and thank you.
Hello everyone, on behalf of my team, I will be speaking on the deformation of rocks and its mechanism. First of all, the continuum mechanism involved here are the forces, stress, strain rate, temperature, pressure, all this which causes the deformation. As the stress increases, rock usually undergoes 3 successive stages of deformation. First is the elastic deformation, the ductile deformation, and then the fracture. For the brittle rock, due to the high stresses, it undergoes fracture or cracks, and all these cracks, it can be broadly classified as joints and faults. In joints, the displacement of the deformed rocks, it is negligible. This is caused by the tensional stress, which is induced by the cooling of the rocks or at low temperature. But in case of fault, the displacement of the deformed rock is relatively large, and usually the plane of deformation in this case is vertically inclined. And depending on the relative displacement of the deformed part, it can be classified into different types. Firstly, the normal faults in which the upper part of the inclined plane, it goes downward. This is caused by the horizontal tensional stress. But secondly, for the reverse fault, the upper part goes upward, which is caused by the horizontal compressional stress. And finally, the last part is in the motion occurs in the horizontal direction, which is caused by the shear stress. And in case of ductiles, for the ductile rock, instead of going cracks, it gets bent and it gets bent due to the compressional stress and the shear stress. And for this case, the low temperature favor this case. But under extreme condition, even these ductile rocks, it can get fracture again. Thank you.
So thank you very much all. So can we have a big round of applause for everyone? So this was amazing, wasn't it? I hope you all enjoyed. So continuum mechanics sounds amazing now, isn't it? So it's got applications in brain, MRI. I didn't know that. So applications in the splitting of planets, applications in boomerangs and so on. So that was really well done. So I would Professor Kailash and Professor Karmarkar, would you want to just say a few words to our students and? Yeah. If you want to come on the stage, please. I mean, please motivate them, and if you want. Thank you.
The continuum mechanics has been studied for the physical design of various objects as was presented here, but it also has applications in computer science, and computer science originated using zeros and ones and digital concepts, but at that same time von Neumann had said, who actually built the first computer, that you have to go beyond this combinatorial methods, and you need something that's based on analytical mathematics to build more successful computers. So these models of continuum are very important in designing the next generation of computers. You have heard about quantum computing, but even in classical computing, if you base your basic primitives based on continuous objects, continuous functions, you can do a lot more computing than what you can with zeros and ones. So I'll just give a simple example how nature does computing. You know the way human ear works. It actually computes the Fourier transform of the signal, that is the acoustic wave. It doesn't work by sampling the way our DSP chips work. They sample in time domain and then do processing, which is very inefficient compared to how ear does it. It does the Fourier transform is a continuum operation. You are applying a linear operator to the entire signal, and then based on the Fourier components, then the neural network in the brain analyzes it. So nature has been using continuum computing in the entire work, even in the way the neurons work and they fire, etc. And now people are thinking how this could be used to build better computers with better models.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a really good presentation. Thank you. Well done. Thanks. So will you lock this room, even and Ken? ठीक है, तो ये लैपटॉप रखा है इनका, उसको अंदर रखते हैं।
Thank you very much, Manoj, for managing this.
It was a good thing, right? I mean, I learned many new things in these presentations.
लगा कि उनका सब्जेक्ट सिर्फ मैथमेटिक्स है
नहीं है, it's more than that.
और इसके अच्छा जो लोग बोलते थे उनको फुल बोले कि नहीं ये मैथमेटिक्स नहीं है, जो लोग बोलते थे इसमें मैथमेटिक्स है वो फुल यहाँ बोल रहे हैं कि
So in the first lecture I had a poll done,
yes,
and the poll said that this course is not relevant to their future. So we can see that continuum mechanics pervades almost everything.
yes sir, almost
ये चलता रहेगा क्या?
yes sir, बंद कर
ये पहले बंद था.
वो वीडियो रिकॉर्डिंग सेव वाला दोनों रिकॉर्डिंग वाले एक लड़के भी तो किए पूरा नहीं इसके वाली होती है ना एक यहाँ भी होता है एक लड़के भी पूरा रिकॉर्डिंग करेगा.
हाँ, पर वो बढ़िया है क्योंकि वो इसका मेरे को पता नहीं कैसा होगा.
बंद हो गया ना
ये तो प्रोजेक्टर बंद हो गया, बट देन ये कैसे बंद होगा? क्योंकि ये
रिमोट होगा ये वाला
ये मेरे ख्याल से प्रोजेक्टर का है.
ये अंदर से नहीं मिलता
ये प्रोजेक्टर का है. क्योंकि अंदर से ही ऑन किया था ये सिस्टम उन्होंने. नयन ने जाके ऑन किया था अंदर से.